Good morning. How is everyone doing on this fine Tuesday? My name's Wendy Johnstone, and welcome back. I'm with the Family Caregivers of British Columbia. Today we are talking about the upcoming holidays. Originally we titled the Facebook Live Surviving the Holidays, but I recently came across a blog that termed it Your Holiday Bill of Rights, which I thought was perfect for family caregivers, as well as this idea of maybe putting a bit more of a positive spin on it, as opposed to this idea of survival, to be able to take a little more control over our holidays and how we want to shape them wherever we can. So welcome. It was actually really interesting because this morning, as I was preparing for Facebook Live and I was just reviewing some of my materials, I was like, I don't know who this Facebook Live is for the watchers or for myself, because I seemed to be nodding along quite a bit when I was reviewing some of those notes. So I think it just goes to show you that this year is a unique year, a little more unique than normal, and so we kind of shifted some of the points to try and reflect the current circumstances. The other thing that I thought was just really timely was yesterday in our team meeting. With our various contractors and staff and individuals, is we were all sort of checking in to see how everyone was doing in the month of December, and it struck me that some of the things that our team is dealing with, because many of us are also family caregivers as well, were really applicable to today's topic. And not just because it's the holidays, but just right now it seems to be a much busier time of year in many respects. So with that, without further ado, we'll start into our topic today. So I think we probably hear this a fair amount in our everyday worlds as family caregivers, and even as parents, or even when we're going through grief and loss, that holidays represent a whole bunch of different things to different people. And so for some people, it's this wonderful, joyful period. And even if they're a caregiver, they want to actually do more joyful things and bring in the holiday spirit. For other caregivers, it really means maybe more, grief and loss, or anxiety and stress about not being able to be with their family or friends at this time of year. So I think it's really important to honor that they mean very, very different things to different people. And sometimes I feel it, I don't know if anyone else feels it, but sometimes I feel it, that there can be a bit more pressure to be attentive and cheerful during the holidays. And so sometimes that can almost make it worse, especially when we're not feeling particularly joyful, or we're worried about stress, creeping in, or we can't get out and see our family members who live in different parts of the province, or in Canada, or internationally. And then on top of it all, holidays, we may actually want to take on some of these wonderful special traditions, or maybe change them slightly in COVID times. And so sometimes that creates this additional stress, or we might again be worrying about how our family is managing during this time, or if something's happening in our family and we can't be there to support that person in person. It can make us feel unsettled or just uncertain. And so, as in particular this year, as our holiday plans are looking very different during the pandemic, and that became very clear here in British Columbia during yesterday's news conference, of course, with Dr. Bonnie Henry, that a shift is going to be taking place in the coming weeks. So there's been a lot of great resources and blogs, reminders. I think I was speaking to a caregiver yesterday, and we were talking about the holidays, and her circumstances are not unique. She's caring for two other individuals, and she herself has a chronic health condition. And so for her, actually, the holidays represent a lot of joy, and so she really wants to embrace it and really enjoy it. And with that comes this idea of how she's going to pace, or trying to pace herself through the month of December. And so we got talking about this topic around the fact that when, whether you have a chronic illness or not, or whether you have a full plate, whether you're carrying 24/7, whether you're working full time and caring for someone, that the important thing is to do what only feels right. And I was reading on the Option B website, they have a great blog on there around holiday tips, that the research shows that in fact, as humans, we're not that great at predicting how we're going to feel in the future. And so this idea of giving ourselves permission to play it by ear, be able to change our mind, do less this year, do more, in the case of this caregiver I was speaking to yesterday, if that's what you need, to be able to talk about it or not. I think that's really important, just to do what only feels right. Obviously, if we're celebrating within a family and we have others, to consider in that scope of how we're going to celebrate the holidays, I think this idea of being open to talking to those in our family or in our closest circle with whom we typically celebrate holidays with, to have a chance to talk about how you're feeling, how they're feeling about the holidays, and in some cases, not talking about it, especially maybe if there's a particular challenge around grief and loss, or your typical circle of support isn't nearby. It's okay not to talk about it too. So the idea of doing what only feels right. I was reading in this other great blog, this idea, this was one around Mediate BC, and they were talking about sort of their 24 days of Christmas. And their first day one, which I thought was fantastic, when I read it, I was like, oh, such a good one, is expect the emotional sleigh ride. And this idea that we want to be honest with ourselves, that taking on holiday traditions or enjoying the holidays is also going to be hand in hand with some experiences of feeling and stress. Anytime we add more things onto our plate, if something doesn't go or it doesn't go as we hoped, then it's only going to be normal that we're going to experience feelings of frustration and stress. So I thought that was a really great reminder. And this whole idea of managing our expectations, that one really hit home for me today, around, what can we really manage given our current circumstances, and considering knowing that things may not go exactly as we want or as we planned, even more so during times of this fluidity around COVID, and 1 week seems we can do one thing and the next week we can't, and that just seems to be the nature of where we're at right now. So I just thought that was great. Expect the emotional sleigh ride. The other one that really came to light, and I think we were touching on this in another one of our caregiver calls, is this idea that sometimes when we're dealing with the holidays, we go into autopilot. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's another one, this idea that sometimes in order to get through things, we simply just go onto autopilot. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are days where we actually do need to go on autopilot and be able to get those tasks done. And sometimes we simply don't have the time in that moment to be able to really reflect. So 2 things. First of all, one, if we are on autopilot and we get through our day, this idea of being able to check in with ourselves, and we reference this around what was our big win for the day? What are some things we want to take forward? What were the lessons learned? Just a little bit of 2 or 3 minutes checking in with ourselves and how our day went, especially if it was on that have to get through everything on that list. The other thing it raises is this idea of mindfulness. And I thought around this time in particular, this time of year in particular, it's this idea of trying to be aware of our present moment awareness. So it's paying attention to our thoughts and emotions and feelings in our body that are constantly happening, and they're constantly going through these waves. Some of them might be really big, and other ones just might be these little sine waves. And this idea of trying to adopt an attitude of curiosity and compassion. So rather than reacting to how we're feeling and perhaps trying to tell ourselves that we shouldn't be feeling that way, this idea of more of curiosity and really understanding why we're feeling that way, and giving ourselves really good self-compassion. And so one of the tools that we really enjoy using with ourselves when we remember, but also in our conversations with family caregivers, is the program. It's called MAST, and there'll be a link down below. And they've got 4 modules, and you can go. They have really great handouts. But the 2 that I really love in particular around mindfulness is this idea of understanding our windows of tolerance, and this kind of range of what we can tolerate, and understanding that when we add different unexpected things that happen in our life or holiday seasons, that sometimes that window of tolerance changes. And so being mindful of that, or even being aware, is often a really great step. In particular, there's this great one. It's the Wheels of Emotion, which I have printed out and I have put up on my corkboard after this morning, because I thought, oh my goodness, I forgot about how really helpful a visual can be, even if it's just a reminder for me to, okay, where am I on the wheel right now? I may only do it once a day or once a week. It still, brings my attention back to awareness. And, there's a lot, the body of literature and best practices around mindfulness is really starting to emerge. And what it tells us is that this practice of being mindfully aware can help us feel better, especially if we're struggling with different emotions, if we're feeling these fluctuations in our mood, if we're in physical pain or emotional pain. It's this ability to sort of step in, just being present with whatever's happening, rather than reacting or getting stuck on autopilot. I thought that was a really a wonderful reminder for us in our different roles as caregivers, as parents, as partners and spouses, as friends, as a community. The other thing that came out of some of the review of the information around holiday time and this holiday Bill of Rights is really prioritizing what matters to us. And so I think, as we're sort of reflecting on this, is that sometimes one of the most stressful aspects of holidays is sort of this subtle, or sometimes not so subtle, pressure to do extra special things. We were talking about this as a family the other day, and my daughter listed off 5 things that she really wanted to do. I listed off 5 things, and our my partner listed off a number of things, and we realized, well, we can't do all, and not all of them were the same, and so we clearly can't do all 15 of these activities, given where we're at in with school and working and our client loads and all of that. And so we had a conversation about it and essentially said, okay, here's what we all want to do. And rather than 5, let's pick, 2 things off the list. And then we'll kind of have this bonus list that if there's time and space, then we'll do the bonus list. And that was really helpful. It actually really helped me feel a lot less stressful. And I think it also helps set some expectations within our own structure about what was going to be manageable this year, and how it was still going to be a lot of fun, and we were still really going to enjoy it. The other thing that I think that I did want to bring up is this: the prioritizing what really matters too is also not just about what we're doing for others or what we're doing within the holidays, but also what we're going to do for ourselves. And I was speaking to the team, yesterday about one of these activities that really highlights the importance of self-care. Now, I recognize I'm in a different place in the sense that I'm not right now actively caring for anyone in my life. I'm actively caring for other paid clients, and that in itself, while I get paid for that, also has some stress associated with that. So one of the things that's really a non-negotiable in my life is my physical activity, and sometimes that can only be a half hour, and sometimes there's more time where I do have a little more time to explore that. Sorry, I've got a hair in my eye. And so one of the things that we decided to do this year was just take on a fun little challenge. There's no expectations on how much to do, but it was around this activity that we love to do, which is cycling, which is gravel cycling, and it's gravel cycling bingo. And every time we go for a ride, we look at the bingo card before we go, and we try and do one thing off of that bingo card, and it's fun. It's something a little different. It kind of helps keep us in that moment and remembering why we love to do the things that we love to do on our bicycles. It's not just always about self-care, it's also about joy and finding these little parts of joy. So I wanted to bring that. This kind of prioritizing also includes our own self-care, whatever that is able to look like. Maybe it's just being able to list one thing that's going to be your priority for that week. And being able to, think about that for yourself, knowing how important it is as much as possible to put your oxygen mask on first. That will help us, care for others. The other thing which I think we touch on probably almost every Facebook Live, and so hopefully I don't sound like a broken record. I kind of reframed it if we're going to be looking at the Santa analogy, just for the sake of ease, that we know that Santa can't do Christmas all by himself. He's amazing, but he has elves to help. And so using a holiday elf to help can often make, Christmas a much happier experience for everyone. And I'm going to just use a personal example for myself, because I typically like to do everything on my own, and I'm not always great at asking for help. But this year, because typically I send things back for my family, nothing big, but even just trying to get a few things organized. And I usually did it in separate boxes. And then I was just thinking about the cost and how much it was going to cost, and how much I don't even have boxes. And I was starting to, even just get a little bit overwhelmed just with that idea. And so I reached out to one of my nieces and said, can you be my holiday elf in Toronto for me? And can I send you a big box? So it's just one box, and would you mind delivering and being my holiday elf? Of course, she was thrilled to do it. She was, happy to be able to help. And honestly, just that act alone has really has allowed me to have a big breath of air and just go, okay, now I just need to worry about one box and getting it to her, and she will happily go out and spread some cheer for me. I put a little extra thing in there for her, for being my holiday elf, and it feels like a bit of a win-win, quite frankly, at this point. So just this reminder that holidays can bring longer lists of errands to run tasks or to complete them, and sometimes asking for and someone being able to help actually ends up providing this beautiful reciprocal relationship, and because really the people that care for us are really happy to do things for us, and my holidays aren't going to be ruined by having to lean on someone, be it virtually or in this case a relative, to be able to be one of my elves in Toronto. So the idea of asking and receiving help, I know it's a running theme, Family Caregivers of BC, and it's only because we really believe it's an important one. The last point that I wanted to touch on was this beautiful idea that at this time of year, and actually kind of at all times of year, that this idea of permanence can be a trap, and also that it's really important to hold on to hope, whatever that looks like to each of us. We don't know what the future holds for us, and we don't know what the holidays are going to look like for next year. And so sometimes what can happen is we can get into this mental permanence trap that it's never going to change, it's not going to look different. And it's kind of important to understand that it won't be like it is right now forever. And sometimes it's actually really helpful to give ourselves permission to plan for travel next year, to hosting a party when it's safe to do so, to be able to think about all the things that we're going to be able to do when restrictions are lifted or when things change. And So I think this idea, this mantra of it won't always be this way is a really important one to end on. And that it's really important for us to be able to hold on to what brings us, joy in the future, and also what brings us, joy in the moment, however small or however big that feels to us. So that is our Surviving the Holidays, aka Holiday Bill of Rights. Wherever each of you are and however you spend the month of December, I want to wish you as much joy and peace and health going forward, and we will look forward to seeing you in January on Facebook Live. Of course, a reminder that our Caregiver Support Line is available Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. So please reach out, by phone, by email. We have a coaching program that can support some one-to-one with caregivers. Our caregiver support groups are virtual, but there's still a wonderful place to land and to listen and to speak to others, other caregivers, and to be able to, find a safe place to land. Our podcasts are available on the site, and we have a wonderful resource hub of information at our website as well. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. All the best.